through my speakers. It's weird. Oh, fuck me. I'm clicking all the wrong things. Okay. Can you try talking for a second?
Yeah. Just gonna read a comment. I wish Cherry was my mom. No.
Yeah. You know what? That's weird. That is so weird that you said that.
With that, I don't want to be their mom.
That you read that comment.
It was about me. Of course I read it.
No, it's not. It's not weird that you read it. It's just a huge coincidence.
Oh, why?
Because I just want to get you on screen real quick. Nice cat.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Because my first question for you was going to be, do you wish I was your dad?
No, but you look like a young version of my dad, kind of. Just like a little more Jewish.
Do you wish I were not your dad?
No?
Okay.
I like you exactly as you are.
Okay. Ground rules. Are you going to be reading chat?
No, I'm done reading chat now.
Okay. I'm putting chat away. Nice mug.
Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, I decided I'm not going to be talking about other streamers when they're not present.
Yeah, I fucking found out about that, and
That
we're
derailed us.
talking about how you think that you're better than everyone. So now, what, is this conversation over?
No, I think we can still navigate it. I'm just going to have to be
Okay.
careful with how I can talk about... I can do this.
Okay.
I got this.
I hope I
Okay.
make you slow.
I know. You know what? You're a little dark. I'm going to try to brighten you up, unless you have a way to do that.
That's a... Okay. Your
Do you
choice.
have any makeup you can put? No, I'm talking about the room, Cherry.
Okay.
Filters. Color
Oh, I don't have
correction.
filters on. Oh, you're talking about what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah. That's not right. Yeah, oh, yeah. Look at that. Look at that.
Good job.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, you asked me here to talk about how I think I'm better than everybody and how I lied about being an empath, I think.
Yeah, so I think, like, if you didn't lie about being an empath, you go out of your way to not use that ability to have this maybe more entertaining conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't always want to be in the role here.
Trust me, I understand that. You told me after our first conversation, I pointed out to you how bold you were having that fucking conversation about consent with you, and how you were unfair by getting to share your experiences but not wanting to lie. And that's the first time I ever heard you say that you didn't want to have to take care of somebody. Because you said you didn't want to have to take care of them. Which is very infantilizing to believe that I can't share like an emotional story without needing nasty fucking help.
Yeah. Maybe I would say I can't do something without feeling I was supposed to.
That is a better way of putting it.
the reason I'm saying it is that I think that you're going to, like, almost purposely go out onto like a log you can't stand on, and then teeter there, and then either have to watch you drown or rescue you. I
Like-
do feel like that's kind of your fault.
Okay, but that's also
But
something that you do, which is like purposely put yourself out there on the log. But if I match
Yeah.
that, it's almost like I took your game plan, and we can't have that. At least that's how it came off to me.
okay,
Which,
I think
no shame. You're just like aiming to win, then like try to understand where someone else is coming
well, that
from.
is shaming, so fuck you. But I will say that I should own that it is my own feelings and my own reluctance. Even if I think it's your fault, I'm still saying like, this is about me. And I framed it as though I was better than you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really
Well, that means
I mean, so I don't do that in your work.
so at least we know that's one person. One down.
One down, but you're not. Man, okay, so the lobby. I know you don't want to talk about specific people, but that's
She's not
like
a
if you that one. I feel like you didn't really see the irony that was like right in your face between her approaching you, admiring you, trying to give you like advice that I think she thinks works for her, but I consider when people who are like streamers or someone like when they give each other advice, it's like mental illness. Don't reach out to give another mental illness advice. Like you sort of like you shut her down. You know, she was like feeding you. She was like giving herself to like you just completely shut her down. And then a day later, you have a conversation with Destiny talking about how why won't you let me reach you? And I don't know. I just saw so much irony. So it's very similar to Lavender. You tell Destiny that you see him, you understand him, and you make yourself vulnerable to him. But he won't like listen to you. And like you have advice that you think would help him. But he's like he doesn't like to reach him. It was just so similar to the way Lavender like was first wanting to approach you.
About that situation, I was guarded, and another situation, I was less guarded before.
Well, I think the ironic thing is that you think how you are and how you would act and how you would close someone off, and you're putting that on another person who isn't like you. Like you see yourself in Steven as a leader, but I don't think that makes him similar to you and how he like has relationships with other people. Whereas Lavender saw herself in you, but it doesn't mean that you understand like the value that you like have or like the advice that you would want to share.
So it's projection when other people do it, but then it's one.
It's projection when you do it.
Yeah, I'm saying I think it's projection. I think it's when I do it. That's what you're saying.
No, I don't think you have a good grasp on what
Do I think I have a good grasp on it?
I think you can, but I think it's not entertaining to be empathetic. I think it's very entertaining to call yourself empathetic and almost use that to like tell people like, right? I'm an empath, but I don't think that's you. I do think projection.
You think I don't know what other people are?
So it's hard for me to go that route because I think you have the potential to, or I think like you can have the choice to know what they're doing or thinking, but you choose different. I feel like 8 times out of 10, you choose different. And it almost seems like when you have these conversations, you choose to have the conversation with yourself. So like you choose the route where like you project your own issues onto that person, and it's almost like you're doing like a self-therapeutic thing with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I love you for it. It's just it's pretty hard to watch. Because I don't want to do what Lavender did, which is to be like, oh, I felt so sad for you. I'm like crying on the inside for you. I really don't cry for you. I know you fine, you Gucci. But like the way you mentioned with Destiny, how like everyone on the outside looking in probably thinks that you were very close friends with him. But it's like you do this whole self-report thing where you don't feel like you're close friends with him. Like you have an access to him that most people don't have. And like there you are still fucking complaining and like making a thing of it. And it's just like, what are you doing? What are you expecting from a person who is very publicly this way? I just don't understand the goal of it unless it's you're either projecting your own shit or like you're looking for a drama that like doesn't even exist.
It's hard to empathize with people if you don't know what their goals are. It's a pretty important piece of like the puzzle of like understanding someone's behavior. If you don't know what they're trying to do, then
So do you feel like you don't know what Steven is doing with you?
my experiences that I do know. But I was talking about you and me. And it seems like you feel like you don't know why I'm doing right.
Yeah, I don't because everything about like the types of conversations we have is sort of like not the conversations, the monologues. When you talk just to yourself, it's very think outside the box, think about people who are different, think about situations that are different. But then it's almost like when you get into the conversation with somebody, you want to get right back into that box. Like, oh no, typically it would be this. Typically you'd be doing this, and I can sense like you're not different. You're gonna be like this kind of thing. And I'm just like, well, what is it here? Are we just like looking for interesting conversations, or is this guy really like think outside the box and think about things in different lights? So sometimes I look at you and I think contrarian. I think this is a guy who gets it, but that's not entertaining. So then you become a contrarian. But you know better. At least that's my opinion. I think I wouldn't mind if half of the time that you have a conversation with somebody isn't like bullshitting, like that's not what you're doing. I can get frustrated. I can get mad. when I feel like people are being like a hypocrite, it can get pretty infuriating.
Yeah.
Fuck, hold on. I lose my trail of thought, so I did like take some notes down. Oh, I wanted to know, how did you feel about Brittany telling you to go be Jewish somewhere else? It doesn't have to be about her, but like getting comments like that.
I'm very sensitive to anti-Semitic comments, but that didn't really bother me. In the same vein of what I was saying, I didn't talk that much about Brittany behind her back. A little bit, but a lot of people did. And I just assumed. I just didn't take it personally. And I didn't think it was. I didn't.
Do you ever feel like sometimes you don't go as hard as you would go because you feel like it's already got something and it feels like, I don't know, doing the slam dunk right now not really satisfying you?
I got a lot of criticism for saying this in my stream with Chad, but I don't really like any debates. I just asked him, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You just asked me if I feel bad. You asked me if I feel hesitant to do the slam dunk, and I'm saying I do.
I didn't ask if you like winning or not. It was basically asking, do you like winning or so bad?
I don't like
a lot of
winning at
people
all.
like.
I don't like winning. That's why I don't like debating. Because I don't like winning, and I sure as hell don't like losing. So then once I'm in a debate, it's like I don't like debating. I like talking. I like discussing.
Also, our mics are they think the last time we had a conversation, my mic was a lot louder than yours, and I don't need any help around the things you're loud.
Yeah, they look good. I don't like debating because it doesn't. You can have a 6-hour debate with somebody, and neither person can learn anything new about the other person, and then and either somebody loses, somebody wins, or in to the audience one person wins, or to a different audience the other person wins, but it's just depressing. You're not sure. You just know what you're saying.
Thank that it just can't add up to the way of conversation. And like the last girl is the easy one for me to pull from. Here's someone who says that they see themselves in you and they relate to you and they try to give you advice that works for them. But they say a few things that, like, even for me, would like turn me off to them. And you like didn't find the way to empathize or to like see them in that conversation. Instead, you just like flip this switch to like, I don't know, go ham at them or dismiss them, get them to shut the fuck up. Which is like I might have done the same fucking thing, but that's me coming as someone who does like to dominate or win. And I think if your goal isn't to win or lose, I'm not sure, as an empath, why conversations seem so combative for you.
I think it's a way to lock it into a stalemate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I looked at chat and I think I'm making some incels.
Well, good. Because I want to make people from incels back into feminists, so I need somebody else out there doing the opposite.
Okay. Trying to think what's next. I feel like there's a lot cut out of here now that we're not like talking about specific streamers.
You can talk about whatever streamers you want. I don't even think it helps the conversation if I talk about them, because I think you're. Is this an interview or a confrontation?
I think it's more of an interview.
Okay. Because when you DM'd me, you said you want to have a conversation with me about how I think I'm better than everybody and how I'm a liar. So
Yeah, but now you're not going to talk about anybody, so. But it's fine. Kind of.
I just need to know if I should be in confrontation mode or interview mode.
No confrontation mode. I just naturally sound like I'm fighting somebody. I can't help it.
Okay. We care about each other. We don't.
Yeah, I do
talk.
very much care about you.
And I care about
Shaylin.
you. Sure.
I'm rooting for both of you.
Yeah.
I also take Shaylin's side over yours. Your side,
Sure.
it's so
Now
easy
that
to
is
take
one.
Shaylin's side.
Now there's a bitch I'll talk about.
Oh, watch yourself, okay? That is like the easiest side to take because there's so much copium coming from your side.
Oh man.
We can actually touch there next because I listened to your summary of that situation, and
Yeah.
you said somewhere around like, I'm having this conversation about these problems that I'm dealing with, these problems I'm trying to overcome, conversation about my problems, and then it brings Shaylin on, and everyone can only care about Shaylin's problems now. But like my problems still exist, but now everybody just cares about Shaylin's problems. And
Yeah, 'cause somebody was talking about like what the problem is, and I was saying
yeah.
that I don't like it when my problem is defined as not the problem.
Yeah, so I feel like you're almost like painting the picture of something that's really easy for a lot of people to get on board with, is the idea that women's emotions are always placed above men's emotions, especially in a relationship. Like, and not just the dynamic between the two people in the relationship, but even people on the outside will be like, hey, you're the man, she's having a hard time, you should suck it up, kind of shit. I feel like you really painted that as the situation, but that's not like, that is not what people saw in that that sex doll review. Or at least that's not what I saw. Let me stop saying people. What I saw was a display of tough love, which is very different from two people sharing like an emotional issue that they're having. Like a display of tough love doesn't come off the same way. Like, does that make sense to you?
You're saying I was showing tough love.
Yeah, you were showing tough love. But you almost took everyone's reactions as if like you and Shaylin were, I don't know, being equally like emotionally vulnerable. And I just don't think that you were. So I don't think that like making that comparison, like people are viewing her problems as like more significant than mine, or they're sweeping mine under the rug. I just don't think it works there.
I'm gonna pretend you're asking questions, and then
Sorry.
I'm gonna answer them as though these are questions.
Yeah.
You just said it was an
Okay.
interview.
Yeah, fuck.
Do you want me to interview you about me? Is that what you want to do?
Listen, I haven't talked to you in so long, so I think I just have like a
Well,
lot
so
of
much to
judgments
catch
of
up
you
with.
in my head.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I love you despite the judgments, but like they exist.
Oh, I know. But I'm glad to know we still have a place in each other's heart.
Yeah.
My what I meant by that was that I felt like I wanted to be the one setting the agenda for what's important. And I wanted to say, what's important here is that my sexual, emotional, my sex emotional needs are not being met because of the role I feel like I always have to be in, where I feel like I have to take care of you all the time. And so I want fixing that, or talking about that, and trying to change it right now to be the problem of the conversation. That's what we're working on. And then it felt like Shaylin maneuvered around so that her reservations about that, or about the conversation, or just her being upset about the role that I was in, or that she was in, that that became the new problem. And it was like, well, if you don't solve that, then we can't talk. That's fine if it's a boundary. But then it felt like for everybody watching, that's all they walked away with. Nobody, very few people, not nobody, but it felt like the majority of people walked away from watching that thinking like, the problem in that relationship is the one that Shaylin redefined as the problem. That's what I think the problem. And that when no one's like, hey, in order to fix this, Shaylin needs to set better boundaries, and she needs to say she'll do this sex thing and then do it. Very few people seem to think that was the solution to the problem. Felt like the solution to the problem is that I should cave, not have boundaries, and basically do whatever she says if she's crying.
Okay, let me ask an actual fucking question.
Okay.
Do you think that the people who did support you, would you say that those are people who are like regular viewers of yours?
Probably.
And would you say that it might be, you might understand why someone who maybe just tunes in for that conversation?
This is
and
barely a question, but yes.
It's a fucking question, okay? Because it's going to end with an exclamation point.
Question mark, but yes.
Would you say that?
Would
let
I
me
say?
finish. Would you say that somebody who maybe just tuned in for that fucking video and saw a demonstration of tough love would probably empathize or be more considerate of Shaylin in that situation?
Yeah, but that's part of what I'm freaking out about.
And do you hold that against her?
Yes, she knows what she's doing.
That's fucked up.
Oh.
That's like fucking 5 types of fucked up. You are the content creator, okay? You have people who watch you regularly and they understand you. And the one time that she gets not the one time, the few times that she gets thrown on screen, people care about her and you all of a sudden don't have the spotlight on you. But you get the spotlight on you all the fucking time. You want people to hear your problems, but do you think that maybe you're just frustrated that your biggest hits are not the ones that get to have your problems out in display? All the times that you've talked about your problems, you don't get the big discourse said about it, but the one time Shaylin pops in, now everybody fucking cares, but they only care about Shaylin, they don't care about me. Even though you can go make 20 more fucking videos about your problems. I don't know if that was a question.
That still feels bad. The idea that my
Yes,
needs...
feels bad, but is it her fault?
Yes.
No.
Oh. I would say it's her fault because she is. I understand she's not consciously. I said she knows what she's doing, but she only knows.
Demons are only so aware, right?
A demon can only be so self-aware. Demon's gonna demon, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that this happens a lot. So, right after Shaylin and I started dating, I think it was the second time I think it was the first time I spent the night at her house in the morning. I came out and she was wearing like a tiny like little shirt and had like cut the bottom off and was just like wearing this little scrap of a shirt. Crop top, but it was really cropped.
Okay.
And her roommate was in the kitchen too, and I came out and I was like, your belly's showing. And she was like, yeah. And then I didn't say anything else about it. And then as we were leaving, she was like, what should we do? What should we do for lunch? And I was like, I want you to make me lunch. And she was like, okay. And then afterward, her roommate like pulled her aside and was like, hey, I'm seeing some red flags in how Max talks to you. I'm a little concerned about your relationship with him, and I think he might be like an abuser. He's very like commenting on your appearance and like telling you he wants you to make him lunch. He's very like, seems very controlling.
He sounds like an empath. Go on.
Yeah, big time. And then this led to like I called her and we were playing a board game with him. I think like a couple of weeks later, and I called her an anti-woman C-word slur, and he got really upset about that too. And then eventually I was like he was like, I don't want Max like in the house, or like I don't want to hang out with him. And then we had to have like a big group conversation where I was like with like him and like their other roommate, where we had to all sit down and like talk about our feelings about how he thought I was like abusive, and later he's like, I grudgingly acknowledge that like Shaylin seems to be okay with how you talk to her, but I'm very uncomfortable with it, so I'm just telling you that I don't like it, and blah blah. And and yeah, and like that's happened with other friends too. So it's not, for me, it's not just like, oh, I make all these videos about myself and now people care about her in this one. It's like my life. And like, she's not the only girlfriend this has happened with. She's not the only woman in my life. Like there's a repeating pattern of
Listen, I understand. I completely empathize. In this situation, I've
because it's
mostly
happened to
dated
you
all the time, especially with my husband. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of an asshole for a woman, for most people. A lot of the ways that I talk to anybody is viewed as toxic. Even though I don't know if I can say it's my culture, but just being blunt has always been how like the family around me has been. And while it is something that my husband loves, and as much shit as I can throw, he can throw it right the fuck back. He'll tell me to kill myself, I'll tell him to kill himself. But all of a sudden, when we're out in public, he's like a fucking angel, and I don't know how to turn it off. So it looks like I'm just an asshole to my husband. And I'm just like, motherfucker, you better tell people that you love me this way, or you better figure out how to like match my energy in public because you make me look like delusional.
Yeah.
No, but it's a similar vibe for you.
No,
but...
it is because Shaylin will tell me to turn the camera off if she gets really upset. So anytime she gets to the point where she's actually going to lose her cool and say something fucking horrible, she turns the camera off. So it looks like I don't think I even said anything horrible to her really in that conversation, but it looks like I'm the. It's not even if she's gonna say something horrible. She's gonna get aggressive. To a certain point, she'll just be like, turn the camera off. The only reason she was aggressive to me in the video at all is because she thought that I wasn't going to post the video at the point in the conversation when she was being aggressive. She didn't think I was. She thought like, okay, the interview's canceled, so we're not going to do anything with this one.
You feel like she's almost just not comfortable displaying that form of herself?
Yeah, probably.
Because I know, like, for my husband...
But that makes me look terrible, like you said.
Yeah, it does. And I know for my husband, like, he didn't like doing it in the start because he felt like he was setting the tone for how other people could treat him. And, like, that didn't, like, register to me. Like, it makes sense after the fact now. Like, oh, hey, I don't want people talking to you like this is okay. But that's still, like, you can knock the chivalry down, like, a bit, you know? I think they probably don't mean well, but it does not help, like, the way you're perceived.
No. And like, especially because the point of my channel is, like, I'm trying to not change how I act just because the camera's on me. So I'm trying to show these intimate moments between us. But then when Shaylin switches into like how she would act if we were at like a mall, then it makes me look unhinged.
Honestly, she should keep that. Shaylin, you should stay that way because the way that people treat me, like in this political space, because of like how blunt or how sometimes is ridiculous. I don't know. I don't think that people really want to, as much as they want women to be like whatever version of themselves, empowered, be this way, be that way. There's no like idealistic type of woman. There fucking is for these people, and they don't want you to be anything but.
I think that's another thing that's so, like, really upsetting to me about this, is that it all feels really sexist against women.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, it just feels to me like the message I'm being sent is women aren't allowed to be upset. And if a woman gets upset, if a woman says something mean or is hurt or whatever, then she... It's the relationship version of take your meds. I am supposed to make her take her meds. I'm supposed to feed her reassurance and placation until we no longer have to see her being upset.
Yeah. I saw the conversation. It seemed like my biggest thing was just making sure that you don't think it's her fault the way that everyone can react to that shit.
I
know you do, and you just need to stop.
I can't. It's just what I think.
Well, we all have different forms of brain damage, I guess. What's next?
I don't know. You tell me. Wait, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I tell you what.
What's
I'm
next?
sorry, I dropped my headphones.
Yeah. You said what's next. I waited until you got that.
Okay, yeah, what's next?
Right. So,
マグダロスキモエベモーラ
シデゲはウラキモエベモーラ
The bubbles. You said that you get them. Why?
Britney's bubbles?
Yeah.
The levels?
Bubbles I know of. Yeah.
Levels?
So-
Levels or the bubbles? 'Cause those are
Isn't it?
two different. Britney is.
ただスートベ
Are they two different ones? Whatever, both of them.
イ
You
レ
said
モ
that you get it.
マジトリフ
When
リ
did I say that?
I think in your talk with her, you like summarized and you said like you understand it.
Oh, the level system. Why? Yeah, I watched her video about her level system, and then I repeated her system back to her. Just to demonstrate like that I understood.
Okay, now that you co-signed it.
No. I said I don't co-sign the. I mean, I co-sign it in the sense that like anyone can like make up like a system of describing things and like if
イレモテ
I was talking about this with somebody called in to talk about IQ and race, and more people are starting to try to corner me.
ユキニュドラマグダロスナスルギー
Yeah. And they're saying I'm like avoiding it, which makes them think that I secretly believe
エルギガンテラ
race and white
スート
people.
ベト
And I'm like, I just,
エルギガンテダムギレおいで
I will make a video about how stupid it is eventually. I'll get around to it. But, so what I was saying to that person is like, it's not that, that each individual like piece of the idea is like wrong. I just don't. I disagree with like the application of it. So I think that's what I was saying to Brittany. Is that I don't agree with the application of it, but I was saying that I understood it.
I guess I would have expected you to, you and Erudite, I would have expected you both to not understand it a lot more than you
マグダロスデモギレ
スートベエルギガンテオーラス
ドラマグダロス見ててイエスリ
レデクオクト
Do you think that you ever go soft on other content creators because you know that that Steven is friends with them?
No.
マグダロスだキローラ
You
ン
don't feel
ナ
like there's like a path
エル
to
ギガンテオーラスだよしチラ
I don't like winning. I think you seem to be going soft because I was such a big part of my upbringing was trying to not let them fall apart and trying to pop them up, hold them together, like not push back too much in any way that would make them collapse, because it was really scary for them to fucking like snap.
エルギガンテラレ
And so I learned to
別域
the
二塁
appearance of pushback and the appearance of fighting and debating without going too far. And then simultaneously, as an empath, I feel that I have a arsenal of psychological tools at my disposal to really dismantle people that I don't think I should.
Asterisk next to your empath claim, but okay.
そう
Yeah.
ごめんみやしスート
And
ベ
I feel
エ
like
リラームトキナ
I'm prepared for a kind of psychological warfare that I think most other people are not really ready for. And I don't think it's good for me, and I don't think it's good for them, and I don't think I should do that. but and so it's hard for me to tell the difference. So like when you and I were, I think this is part of what freaked me out. You and I were like arguing about consent. We're like fighting, and so then I'm in like fighting mode, and if I'm in debate fighting mode, there's a certain amount of like psychological understanding and empathy that is off the table for me. Because I'm like, don't use these are like chemical weapons, and it's like not right, and it doesn't help. It's not going to get us anywhere. It doesn't do anything good. It's just wrong. And then well, you're like, I want to talk about my own personal experience, my own consent, personal like horror story. And so then I feel like you're bringing like psychological tools back into it. And I'm like, well, if we're fighting, I don't want to do that.
Which was utter bullshit because you started the fight with like your experience of why you view it this way, and then as soon as I will use my experience to justify my view, you're like, oh no. Let's not get personal. You should have just gotten out of When's the last time you had a conversation with Star on stream?
I popped into her stream last week, but a real full stream conversation that wasn't a panel. We've only had one. We only had one stream alone. January.
I don't really know where I was going with that one.
Why'd you ask?
I've just been paying attention to the shit that she's in. You mentioned how people were trying to bait you with some race realist stuff, and it seems like she's getting a lot of shit from people who are like dragging race into the picture and stuff like that. I thought maybe you guys were having similar fights.
People are not calling me racist. They're trying to turn me into a racist.
Why? I mean, you don't have to explain.
That's it. I just think that people, I think some people think I have an interesting, good way of looking at things. And they're like, you know what'd be cool is if you had all of your beliefs and then you also thought that white people were a superior race. And if I can make you think that, then you will think that, and that'll be really nice.
It's so funny to me because one of the first things I saw about you that made me decide, oh, okay, this is a decent human being, were your BLM videos and stuff like that. I think mostly because of your BLM videos, I didn't completely write you off as a contrarian. I thought you had some sense.
Yeah. I find race realism really, it's passive-aggressive racism. It's really, people are like, I'm not racist. I don't have animosity towards black people. We just need to be racist. And if we can just teach black people that they're genetically inferior, then they won't be so mad that they're not having the same kind of success as white people, and then problem solved. And that's literally like their goal. And I'm like, that is so fucking stupid on so many levels. But more than that, it's really annoying. It's really annoying. It's so passive aggressive. So yeah, I do want to be careful when I address that. So I'll read whatever. People keep sending books and cartoons. You know, like if you read this, it will convince you.
I think there was something in a CRT thing or whatever that says black people learn math differently. I don't know. Complete bullshit.
Oh, they're talking about being right and coming up with the correct answer is a white value. Like
2022, everyone gets an opinion.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I think it's worth thinking about as a frame. To even question like correctness as a value. I think it actually is worth thinking about.
Do you have any questions for me? I'm actually doing really good. I saw you and Chad talk about it. Bitch.
Yeah, well, you had a series of unhinged events.
Describe what Hinge and Twitter is. I feel like you're automatically unhinged once like you create an account on that fucking app.
Yeah, and that's part of why I don't use it. Or, that way.
I just kind of like fighting people sometimes.
You asked me if I had a question.
Yeah.
I said 4.
Yeah. Because I know.
That's not a
Wait, that is a real answer. Because a lot of people think I'm not okay because of the fucking bird app.
It's a conversation ending answer.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, that's okay. So then I asked a follow-up. Oh, then you said why? And then I said, you seem unhinged on Twitter. And you're like, everyone's unhinged on Twitter. And I'm like, okay, if you reject the premise that you have been more or are particularly unhinged on Twitter, I don't think that line of questioning is going to last.
Okay, I free fire on Twitter. You're correct. It can be viewed as unhinged. I find being polite and avoiding upsetting people to be very boring. So I do the opposite.
The opposite being stumbling around.
What is stumbling around about me?
Being uncareful. Being
Okay, yes,
sloppy.
I can be sloppy, but okay. You're like the second person to call me sloppy. I think Merit was the person who initially called me sloppy. And she said I'm sloppy because everyone can tell that I don't like her. And I think that that's such bitch energy. If you don't like somebody, why would you hide them? What is sloppy about being honest? It makes me wonder how many people she dislikes that she just pretends like she doesn't, because she's not sloppy.
You say you were separated.
I separated for like half a day.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Oh, are you calling me separating on Twitter sloppy? Because that's okay, but
I think some people thought that you were joking after that.
I think a lot of I think I got triggered, and I think my husband was like very close to tweeting out that like he wasn't the one trying to leave me, and so I just started making a joke of it all.
That's sloppy.
It is sloppy. But it's also honest.
Glad you. It's kind of honest, but if the repair crew coming in to like the fact that he feels like he has to do PR damage control to even have a correct narrative of what is happening during a gigantic like blowout in your relationship. That the fact of being in that situation feels sloppy.
We have a few problems that are reoccurring, and like one of those problems is not like my mental illness or anything like that.
One of those problems is not your mental illness?
Yeah, we have like two problems. Neither of them is my mental illness, I guess is how you would describe it. Before I was with him, I was working on getting a misdiagnosis removed from me. I was diagnosed bipolar like 10 years ago now. And I guess recently, earlier this year, was diagnosed with borderline. These have never been an issue in our relationship, but it was the first thing for like people to jump to in hearing that we separated. And I didn't know. He understands that he was one of the few people in my life that has ever like had compassion with me in that regard, just like look at me different in that way, write off all of my emotions and things like that because of like those diagnoses. So to see that on Twitter, I don't know, it provokes. And like the last thing I want to do is the person who I'm not to go on Twitter and defend me. I don't know. It was all, yes, it was sloppy image, but
well, if he did that, it would also even if it throw you under the bus quite a bit.
It's fine. At this point, I'd like to live under the bus, I think.
I don't know if this streaming and tweeting is.
You told me. Stop streaming because mental illness.
Yeah.
And then people think that if I tweet or get amplified, it's just people who are enjoying using my mental illness for entertainment. Like, there's no fucking winning with any of you. I'm not like a person anymore, which, like, for me, I feel like I've been through this ringer with when I was diagnosed bipolar. I already experienced everyone treating me different, completely writing off the way I used to be, hoping that I would be a different fucking person, and constantly resort everything that I do, if they like it or don't like it, like back to bipolar or to like medication or to therapy. Like, I've been there. So when it happens to me like this time around, I just am not gonna like listen to people like that. I know you mean well, but what you're essentially saying is that you have a personality disorder, so like you can't exist with the rest of us anymore. You can't do these things because, you know, before when you were undiagnosed it was fine, but now that you have a diagnosis, you'll never be okay. I mean, I've got into it with people who I can obviously tell have something the fuck wrong with them. But I'm very much capable of not fucking making it about their mental state when I argue with them. And before, what was it, February? And before February, everyone was very able to fight with me and argue with me without making it about my personality disorder. But after the fact, they can't. And I think I'm very, I feel very bad for the people that it bothers to see that. Like, I think there are people who genuinely care about mental health, whether it's their own struggles or like people that they love, their struggles. I know that seeing me go through the ringer, it triggers some people in that way. And I feel for that, but it doesn't trigger me in that way. And I feel like sometimes I'm expected
I
to
am
feel
not
more
my
bad than I
mental
do.
illness.
Yeah, I'm not. And honestly, half the time, I don't think that you guys would be able to tell whether I am acting like my Dominican family, my Italian family, or like a bipolar or borderline bitch. I don't think any of those can like really be distinguished from one another. Are you okay? Can I still stream?
No. I think you should stop.
Why? You make the case of why I should stop.
We can just play video games. You don't have to. You don't have to. You know?
You asked me to play Halo with you, and I have
Yeah.
dodged ever since. Why do you think I'm going to want to start now?
I'm just saying you don't have to be a streamer just to talk to me, Cherry.
Okay, obviously I don't have to be a streamer just to talk to you.
Okay. So, that's one thing.
You're not even on Twitch anymore. I still only stream on Twitch.
I'm trying to get back. I try to appeal every once in a while, but it's like, it says pending. It says my appeal is pending. I think it's just going to say that forever, though. They rejected it, I think twice so far. Yeah, I don't think streaming is good for anybody. But definitely not.
Do
yeah.
you... Okay, yeah. So, thank you for dismissing the everybody claim, because you're specifically talking about me. Because I think you've only gone out of your way to tell me to stop streaming. So,
Yes.
why?
Streaming is like carbon monoxide, where it feels like you're getting air when you need intimacy and people caring about you, which I think is what you need. It feels like you're getting air, but you're not. You're getting poison, but it's you don't know that you're being poisoned, and it's you know, going into your blood cells just like air would, and being carried all around throughout your body, but it's just killing you.
Okay, well, I don't use streaming for feeling like people care about me. I use it for company. And I think I've been mostly antisocial and like without real communication and interaction with other people for a really long time. And that's why I enjoy streaming. But to feel like people care about me or feel like an intimacy with another person, I only get that through sex. I'm very aware of that.
Well, that's why I think you should. I don't think Twitch is good for you. I think you should switch to Chatterbait.
Listen.
You didn't let me finish my suggestion. I'm saying you should stop streaming and start camming.
Mr. Girl. Bonk.
I think that you, even getting company from streaming, I'd still call that carbon monoxide.
I don't know. I don't enjoy having like friendly interactions in person. The only time I like to be around somebody like physically is if it eventually like gets intimate or if I'm like fucking them. But I have always enjoyed having friendships online.
Do you understand
lot
why
of the-
that is?
Yeah, because I am antisocial and I have a lot of social anxiety. And have a lot of need for there to be no pressure in social settings. So the idea that I would turn on my camera and start streaming, and the people who want to hang out come hang out, or when I don't feel like talking or hanging out with people, I don't turn on my camera and I don't start streaming. Like, that is very appealing to me.
So join a chess club or something. There's other ways
I don't like
to
chess.
There's other ways to get that sense of community that are less exploitative and less damaging to you.
What do you feel is damaging here?
The chat. Imagine
you
if
think that the
imagine if-
most issues I have are with like other small streamers. Chatters, I don't think have ever bothered me. I do know how a ban or a mute function works.
Well, I think it inherently makes interactions between streamers toxic, that there are hundreds or thousands of people watching.
I think the
That-
streamers' fragile egos make it very difficult.
I don't think so. I don't
And-
think you'd have these same problems if you were just alone in a room talking with these people. It's the audience that's making it toxic.
Are you sure, Mr. Girl?
Yeah.
I very much like you, and I still come off as like a. Are we fighting or are we chill?
I know, but if we were just playing Halo alone like I fucking said we should, then I don't think this would be happening.
Yeah, but that's a you thing. So you're worried that if I'm like a little rude, if you need to be on guard or something like that. I'm not fucking worried if you're disrespectful to me.
I'm starting to, okay, have you heard my, my theory, my grand theory of online grooming is starting to coalesce into, Discord and, other social media apps put kids in danger, and then we blame it on pedophiles?
No, I don't know this theory.
Okay,
You think
this is
I'm
basic.
putting myself in danger?
I think streamers think that the reason they're fighting with other streamers is because of the personalities of the streamers or something they've said. And I'm starting to think it's a systemic problem of just the layout of what's happening, what's incentivized, the chat, the entire format of all these things we accept as normal, and we think we should be able to have normal friendly relationships and friendships, with people watching and donating and wanting drama and people reviewing each other's streams and talking about each other, and we should be able to just get along. And what I'm coming to is that doesn't make any fucking sense. We can't get along. It's impossible to have normal, functional relationships that are not incredibly fucking weird and unhealthy in this situation. Which probably seems obvious to some people, but...
No, I agree with you. I've accused several other streamers of having a sort of parasocial relationship with me, thinking that they understand me just because, I don't know, we have our DMs open and we're mutuals on this platform.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Okay,
But I think I've never done that to anybody else.
Tell me an analogous situation in real life where you would get company. The stuff I'm thinking of is going to the gym. This is I think
No,
working
I have
out.
a home gym.
I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you are aware that people go to the gym, they work out. If people are there, you have a lot of weak tie relationships. People you don't know well, but people you see week after week. They show up, you say, "Hey, how's it going?" There's no pressure. You just sort of eventually fall into a rhythm of chatting with, saying hi to, just nodding to the people that you know and like, and people you don't. Some people you become friends with, or sometimes you don't become friends with anybody, or whatever. It's all very laid back because you're all there to do something else that does not. It's not really about socializing, but to some degree it is. Now imagine if while you were working out, there were 200 people in windows above the gym with binoculars, and you can never see them, but they see you, and they're watching you the entire time. And if you do a really nice squat that they like, they'll drop $5 down from this like extreme. There's like these really bright lights that are shining on you, but the windows are above the lights, so it's really dark. You just see a $5 bill flutter down out of the darkness, and it lands in front of you, and you're like, oh, I guess you like that. And another $5 comes down. Like, yeah, do more of those. We like those. Do you see how that adding that element would make it, and everything you do is like being recorded and remembered forever. And then other people in other gyms are watching close-ups of like your set of like pull-ups. They're watching them and they're commenting on the form and they're emulating them. Do you see how all of that would completely obliterate any mentally healthy aspect of going to the gym if you were to introduce these variables?
Okay. So are you saying that because I enjoy streaming as, I don't know, like a decent social interaction, that the fact that I make money from it is actually not healthy?
I'm just saying that I mean, like, I can go through piece by piece and, like, try to make the case to you. But I'm just saying, if you take the analogy as a whole, you can see how something that would be good for you would suddenly not become good for you. It would turn going to the gym more into, like, stripping.
Dude, too much water is bad for you, okay? And anything can be good or bad for you.
That's evasive. You're now...
Whatever, I'm being evasive then.
You are.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. Just say you don't want to face this.
No, I'm gonna face this, but like my
Okay.
problem is, for me as somebody who has actively like attended to my mental health, because mind you, nobody fucking gave a fuck about my mental health struggles until, what was it, February, when I said the fucking shit that I was going through. I've been talking about this the whole time I've been a streamer. I'm like on top of my mental health for over 10 years now. I don't pretend like I don't have these struggles, which is why I preface them for most of like the issues that I have, or when I ever reach out to another person, it's usually to make sure that like, am I off here? I'm never like calling for like a backup or some shit when I don't like somebody. I think your advice is best given to someone who doesn't even know that they have mental health problems. Those are the people who are dangerous, who are in need of like your fucking warnings and advice, okay? I don't understand why the people who are actively working on their shit are the one who get it. Also, I wish people would throw me $500 every time I squatted. That actually feels really healthy to me.
It's not.
I can make it healthy.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're mad at me
Massive
for the same
spots
thing.
I do.
Now we're back in the same fight again. So last time it was, I don't want to hear about your consent story, and you were saying I was tantalizing you, and now I'm saying exactly.
Yeah, because you can't fucking stop doing or they're like, I'm this damsel in distress and I just don't even know it. But Max is gonna help me. He's gonna show me. He's gonna get me to sit down and take a break that he thinks that I need. Like, why? You find yourself fully equipped to do it. But me?
No, I'm not fully equipped.
So then you're projecting.
Well, my only choices are I think I'm perfect or I'm projecting. No, it's obviously bad. That's very clear to me. I would like to find a way to make it less bad, but I don't know if it's possible, and maybe it is too bad for me, and maybe I will have to stop streaming.
I've actually...
But if I'm going to have to stop streaming at some point, oh, bitch, you better stop streaming too.
The difference between us, Max, is I'm not up here trying to be an advocate for shit. I'm not trying to teach people shit. I don't act like I know shit besides, like, myself. Which is why my stream is not like the most essential, okay? For as soon as I've been back, I don't do like this war or anything like that anymore. And not just because I've like safely watched restream Destiny content. But mostly because I just don't feel like pretending like I know what I'm talking about with all of the data politics that he speaks is mostly just sitting there and learning when I watch that shit. So I try learning from other videos, and I mostly play Elden Ring. And I'm thinking about getting into reading books. That kind of fits my vibe. But yeah, I'm not trying to be an advocate or anything, and I think that is overall going to make it better. Like, I look at other Twitch streamers and how they can have like not stress-free, but a less stressful existence on stream, and it's because people genuinely like them as a person, have gotten to know them as a person, and will sit there and enjoy them doing what they enjoy doing. So if it's like video games, or if it's like a watch party or something like that, or them in a call shooting the shit with their friends, like that seems to be the type of streamer that is just vibing, and that's what I want. I don't know if I'll get there, but I'm gonna try. But your existence is like defending pedophiles and shit. So yeah, that sounds stressful as fuck.
It is. I still think we should stop.
Of course you do. Because you're stubborn.
We should hang up
You're a
this
fucking
ball
man.
right now and never get back on the stream ever again. 'Cause I'm a
I'm
man.
gonna stream after this. Yeah, because you're a man. You always think that you're right. Poor child.
Go be a man somewhere else.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it. Go be a man somewhere else.
Okay. Alright, well, if you ever want to play Halo.
Okay.
Or any other game,
It's gonna be another game.
that's fine. Just let me know.
I will.
Take
Tell
care of
Shaylin-
yourself. And by that I mean stop streaming. Oh, what do you want me to tell you?
I'm not gonna. Tell Shaylin I love her and her art. You should never lose her.
I believe she's watching that. Or, oh, no. Which I think
Okay. Bye.
Distressing convo. It is a distressing convo. It makes you wonder what exactly we're all doing here. Denying Halo is a red flag. Mr. Girl, I think you should stop forever. Well, it's a balancing act, you know? I think we all knew starting out on this mission, even back in college, that I was going to lose a few limbs along the way, figuratively or otherwise.
綺麗ねブルームサーレだ
Clark Hunt, I can't believe you admitted to calling Shaylin the sea slur. That's messed up. You shouldn't say that word ever. Thank you for the donation. I call her that sometimes. The problem is that I think she likes it a bit when I call her that. So, I've learned to call her other things if I'm really mad, because seeing this like almost imperceptible smirk when I'm trying to say the meanest thing I can is pretty frustrating, as you can imagine. So I only call her the sea slur when I'm medium angry. You shouldn't sacrifice yourself, Max. Well, I don't want it to be a total sacrifice. I just think that there's some things I'm willing to sacrifice and some things I'm not. I'm figuring out. I mean, that's any life you lead is going to involve some amount of sacrifice, right? So I think my life is pretty interesting and will probably continue to be interesting. I get to be artistic, and right now I'm getting to be paid for that, which is great, because I've sacrificed, I think, quite a bit of money and stability here. So I don't know. But yeah, yeah, doing things like defending pedophiles obviously is going to take some kind of toll, and finding out if that's acceptable to you or how that's going to work, I think is all just part of the thing. And also, I want to change. I do want to change some like norms around streaming, at least around my streaming or how it's done, and yeah. I want to make it a good thing, but right now the way it's done doesn't feel good. But I think that not talking about to kind of mimic. Thanks for the content. Thanks, Hoxtable or Hoxtable. I think that like with Twitter. Part of what was so maddening to me about Twitter and made me feel like so toxic and insane on it is the feeling that like you have to respond. That it's like everything's bad about streaming, but like happening that fast. Or like the narrative about you and who you are and what you're doing and what you're saying changes in an instant. Somebody just hits that algorithm gold mine, says something about you, and then it starts snowballing immediately. And like I was having trouble sleeping, just like waking up and seeing like, oh, like a 500 retweets, like or you know, and it's like this feeling like you got to be ready to put the fires out. Once I made this declaration, like I will no longer be using Twitter other than for announcing videos, because I don't want to give up the platform. Especially because I'm so likely to get banned from other places. Like I definitely want the safety, and Twitter is like more accepting of, you know, people like me, and so I don't want to give it up. But once I decided, I'm not going to try to put out the fires, let it all burn. It's been much less stressful for me and taken up much less of my time. I don't feel like I have to pay attention to it because there's nothing I can fucking do about it anyway. And I think a similar thing is going to happen with streaming. Now that I've announced I'm not going to talk about anybody, like, yeah, will I still be curious about what's being said about me? Sure. But I don't think it'll have the same urgency of, like, then I have to do something about it. And also, I feel like the worst part for me about Twitter is my own toxicity. And the worst part for me about streaming is seeing myself say things that hurt people. And I really don't want to do that. So, yeah, I think this is a step in the right direction for me. Mr. Girl is like the idealistic teen who still thinks they can save. I don't even know what saving the world means. I know that humans will go extinct and then we'll all die miserable and insane. But I would like to make it a little brighter. What is the C slur? I can't say it on stream. They demonetize you. Would you talk to Sargon? Yeah. I think that would be interesting. What's happening? Quitting Twitter? No, I've already effectively quit Twitter. I use Twitter to announce streams and set up streams, but I don't use it to talk about any issues or really interact with anybody in any other way because I found myself being too toxic. And I'm drawing a parallel between that and my new rule of streaming, which is that I will not talk about streamers behind their backs. If I have something to say about a streamer, I will say it to their face. That's the plan. I think I managed to get through this conversation with Cherry pretty well. I don't think I broke my rule. Any cool people you're chatting with or trying to chat with in the near future? Well, Lucas, thank you for the donation, and I think that you're gonna like what I have to say. Mr. Girl Hotline, episode 2 will be Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's all I have to say about that. Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Economics with Econoboy. I DM'd Econoboy and I said, hey, I know it's been a while, but you want to do a stream? What's up, baby? And he said, yes, what do you want to do a stream about? Oh, I said, do you want to do an economic stream? And he said, what do you want to do a stream about specifically? And I said, economics. And he said, well, I guess it'll just be a general stream then. And I was like, great. When? So, we're going to talk about economics with Econoboy. How many hours Reckful spent?
And I'm like, square one. You think that that's a dumb?
It's gonna sound really dumb. Then I remember having a moment though. Okay, this is more whole camera, so it's not.
So I guess it didn't matter.
Like to crop my camera, so it's not so much bad. I don't really. Like, yeah, whatever. Who cares?
How are you?
So the day after we talked last time,
Yeah.
I felt a lot better. I think I might have messaged you about it.
Yeah.
I woke up and felt more whole. It was good.
Yeah. Great.
Then I remember having a moment though. Okay, this is gonna sound really dumb, but I was sad the day after that. And I remember being like, oh, I'm not fixed. And I was like, obviously I'm not. It's not a permanent. There's no permanent fix to sadness for my whole life. It's going to be up and down, right? But it's such a dumb thought. But I remember having that thought and being like, ah, you know, even though it's just an automatic thing. But thanks.
Yeah, but why do you think that that's a dumb thought?
It's a dumb thought because human emotion is always going to be up and down, right? I'm not going to be happy forever.
Yeah, but I mean, as crazy as this sounds, I don't think that's a dumb thought. I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's an important realization. Right? So sometimes when you have, you know, a powerful moment in life, you feel transformed. And then the next day rolls around and you're like, oh shit, we're back to square one. And that's actually, like, I'm glad you feel that way, because I think part of, so, you know, this is not about curing people. This is about teaching you how to go in and out of the water. So like you felt really good for a day, and then you noticed that like there were things about you that are still the same. And so like the whole process of, I think, growth and healing is actually like having good days and then bad days and good days and then bad days. And each time you learn how to move from one to the other. And then over time, you get better at like moving back and forth, and then you get to control whether your days are good or your days are bad.
This makes sense.
You get to control whether your days are good or bad? How the fuck do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been waking up every day for the last week. I've been waking up and I start out in I'd call it a sad state. I start out in a sad state. And I always have like this faint memory of some dream that was really annoying. Like I was in an airport and lost my luggage. Like these kind of, so I think that kind of affects the feeling when you're waking up maybe a little bit. Then I'm waking up and I'm like, I mean, it's probably, most people probably wake up a little sad because you have low energy. I don't know.
Sure.
Then as I'm getting through my day and starting to do some things I find fulfilling, like talk to Talbadar, who's my friend who works on Everland. Then I'm feeling better. And then after we stop working for the day, then I go in the slump for a bit. And then I try to reach out to friends to hang out. And if they hang out with me, then I go back in a happy time. And then I get a little lonely, and then I go to bed. And that's my day. So it's like...
Yeah, so-
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to apologize because some of the interviews are starting to blur together. But didn't we talk a little bit about how you had periods of time where you distract yourself from your base state, and then you kind of
Yes.
get tired of
Yeah, we
that,
did talk
and
about
then. So I mean, I think this is so Rackful. This is all fantastic, actually. I mean, I realize I say this way too much on stream, but people will tell me something really fucking depressing about their life, and I'll be like, that is fantastic. What I think is fantastic is that you're noticing the patterns of your life.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
You're
I am.
noticing what's going on. And the theories that we developed last time, which is that you have this basic state of like unhappiness where you do like fulfilling stuff or distracting stuff, and that kind of distracts you from that, but then you kind of like come back to like your like neutral, which is sad, which we're going to get into. But I think it's really important to recognize that like you're going to have, just to understand what's going on in you, that you can do like dharmic work, you can do work that you find fulfilling, and that makes you feel good. And you can also hang out with friends, and that makes you feel good. But when you're alone and by yourself, it sounds like you feel sad.
Yes, and I actually view that as okay. I think about it like from, I guess, an evolutionary standpoint, that humans needed other humans around them to survive and pass on their genes. So if you didn't have other humans around you, you'd be unhappy maybe. If like, why do you do that with your eyebrows? I was like,
Yeah, because I mean, so like, yeah, sure. So I'm a scientist, but I mean, I say sort of fuck that, because the whole goal here is for you to be peaceful and happy when you were alone, right? Is your basic state to be peaceful and happy? Like that's the goal.
that would be awesome. But yeah, that would be awesome. But then I do like this feeling that I can, if I feel terrible, I'm like, oh, it makes sense. I can step back and be like, oh, it makes sense. I'm alone. Human beings were meant to be tribes, not alone.
So that's huge. But I think the key thing there is not the rationale, but your capacity to step back and accept the way that you feel. To not judge yourself for the way that you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason you do it is fine. I mean, whether it's evolutionary or whatever, like that's great. But I think the important thing is that when you're feeling sad, this I think is a little bit different, is that I think you accept that you feel sad, and you kind of are okay with that, in a sense.
Yeah, I'm somewhat okay with it.
So tell me about that. Tell me what you mean by somewhat okay with it.
I can imagine. Okay. Well, I definitely didn't. Oh man, when I was in high school or 20 or something, I didn't imagine that when I'm 30, I'll be a person who's alone this often. I didn't think that would happen. And I think that kind of thought in itself makes me a little more sad. Mm-hmm. And I should just take things day by day more. I think streaming, I have a lot of justifications for it. I mean, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, streaming as a job is very isolating. You do talk to people on the internet, but you end up sitting in your room 10 hours a day, many years in a row, sometimes 7 days a week. I did before. Not gonna make you're not gonna make a lot of friends like that, you know. And then if you want to talk to other people who are streamers who are in the same field, usually people meet people at their career, but the other streamers are just as busy streaming all the time also. So then I can't really expect them to give me their time.
Yeah, Rekful, I have a couple of just simple questions. What part of the world do you live in?
In the US. I'm in Texas right now. I used to be in California.
how much exposure to sunlight do you get?
I get a lot. So I walk every day. I step. I just actually took my train for a walk like a week ago. But I walk outside for like 5 miles actually a day. So I'm
Okay, so you get plenty. Because I mean, you could just be like vitamin D deficient. You know, like
my dad
that's-
always thought that too. Yeah.
But I mean, if you're getting
My dad, every time he visits me or I visit him, he just hands me this vitamin D pills from Costco. Yeah.
no, I mean, if you're walking 5 miles a day, that's what, like an hour and a half. Yeah,
I
so
just
you're-
think I just brainstorm while doing it.
yeah. What's your ethnicity?
I'm Israeli.
Okay. So people who have darker skin, so people who are Israeli or Middle Eastern or Indian or African American, we have lower. Our vitamin D apparatuses are not as efficient as people who are Caucasian, and that's just because we were bombarded by sunlight, like all the time, which is why we
Takes
have
me
darker
longer to
skin.
get vitamin D.
Yes.
Okay.
So like, but it still shouldn't be a problem in Texas. But in the Northeast, for example, like I'm Indian, so I'm almost certainly vitamin D deficient because my vitamin D like apparatus is not as efficient as someone who's Scandinavian by origin.
Yeah.
But okay. So let me just kind of recap a little bit about what I heard. So it sounds like things are moving in a positive direction, that you're able to accept and understand that sometimes you still feel sad. You're also able to, this is really important, sort of see how your life has influenced, and the choices you make, the career that you've committed to, has created the situation that your life is in now, which is like somewhat lonely.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, so what I'm hearing from you is that you say sad, but what I'm hearing is lonely.
I equate I relate. Those two are very related to me.
Okay.
The feeling of loneliness, it
あだ
makes me
いい
sad.
わよ
Right?
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of things make someone sad. But what I'm hearing from you is like the meaning of sad or the origin of sad is really loneliness. Like when you wake up in the morning and you
No.
feel sad. Okay.
No one yes, because I just remembered when you said that. I remembered I was at TwitchCon at a party and I tweeted, "I'm in a room full of people, but I've never felt so alone." Something like that. And
Why are you
I
saying?
guess
Okay,
I quit.
in your first session, you said that he is sad because of this scar in his life, his brother committing suicide. And you said that sometimes he can distract himself from being sad. Which fits with what he's saying. He's sad when he's alone, and when he's occupied with other people, he's less sad. But now you're saying that him being alone is the cause of his sadness. But then when he said 5 minutes earlier, I think being alone is the cause of my sadness because humans are meant to be around other people, you said, fuck that. Because our goal is to get you to raise your baseline for you to be okay when you're alone. I feel like you're not really squaring all that.
Equate it to not relating to people near me, maybe?
Yeah. So I think let's remember that being alone and being lonely are like two different things.
Okay, yeah.
So what's the difference?
Well, you can feel lonely. You can feel lonely if, what I just said though, you can feel lonely if you're not relating to people around you, right? Or if you don't feel close connection.
Yeah.
Even if you're around people.
And when you wake up in the morning, like what do you mean by feeling sad? Can you help me or us understand that?
Yeah, I want to try to word it better. So let's see. I'm trying to put relief on myself in that situation. Just woke up. I wake up and I'm like already nervous about something. Or anxious is the word, maybe?
Sure.
I don't know what it is. And then I think that maybe it's the dreams, but I don't remember.
You ask him these thought-provoking questions, and while he's answering them, you do this with everybody, you are nervously looking around, looking at the chat, worrying about how long it's taking him to answer. Something I assume does not happen unless you're on stream.
Then I like to not look at my phone too quickly when I wake up, because I realize that already kind of puts me in a bad state of mind, so I just sit there and like breathe and think for a little bit. And then when I finally do look at my phone, I like go through some messages I might have gotten. I don't really get that many, but you know. And then I respond to some people. And then sometimes I'm walking myself through it, but I'm not really getting anything from
Okay.
it. Why I feel sad? Yeah.
I'm just curious about dreams. Do you have dreams that are kind of like negative? You sort
They're
of
always negative.
like
when I
bad
remember
things.
them.
Bad things happen to you in your dreams.
Yeah.
Dreams of flying or falling.
Falling. Yeah, falling,
Okay.
not flying.
And like,
If I remember them, it's some weird things like I was falling and I woke up. Yeah.
what about dreams of? I don't know how to say this, but not so, like persecution isn't the right word, but like dreams of like disappointing people or like being like, I don't know how to describe this, but like dreams of like showing up to class and forgetting that.
Why are you guessing his dreams? Is this like for the sake of efficiency? How long does it take to fucking just ask him what he dreams about?
Like forgetting your homework
I hate that you're constantly just railroading people.
at home.
Those are my most common type.
Okay.
The showing up. There's always something I forgot. Somewhere I am.
Yeah.
I don't have something. I'm not. Yeah. The exact. Yeah. A lot of people have that one. Huh?
That's the
Fucking
feeling. Well, I mean, maybe a lot of people do. I
The
think
most
you
recent
do.
one I just said I was at the airport, and I like lost my bag or something. It's hard to remember exactly what it was. There was just something was lost while I was there, and I just kept. It was it was so long. I just kept looking for it forever, and I just couldn't ever find it. And I was just stuck in this loop.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's just put a pin on that for a second. So, and when you feel sad, like let's talk about going to bed. When you go to bed, how do you feel?
Depends on the day. I guess if I feel it's a specific day, I felt like I made some progress toward my game finishing, or back before when I stream a lot, I streamed that day and I like to stream. I'm going to, or if I hung out with some people who were I felt a connection with, like friends or whatever. Then I'll go to bed at like more fulfilled and pumped. And a lot of times I'll just go to bed go to bed lonely.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing. So I think I'm gonna try to offer something else. I think there's loneliness there, and I think there's also life not turning out the way you want. This is not the life that you expected to be living.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a lot better. It doesn't seem like it's difficult to get there. I could have more friends around. I've tried to force it to happen sometimes, like really try to get people to move to be near me and things like that, like friends do that. And it just led to bad situations when I did it.
Yeah. Give me just a second, okay?
Yeah.
So it's almost like your life is like you've gotten to the age of 30 and you're in Rexel's life, but you're at the airport of your life, but you left your bag. Like this is not how things were supposed to wind up. You know?
Yeah.
It's like this is not, it's not that anything is like wrong per se, like everything else is right, but there's just like one thing that's just missing. Like this is just not how things were supposed to be. And
Not enough friends around.
and I think the challenge here, Reckful, is that, you know, we can.
You did not tie the dream metaphor in. There.
in a bizarre way, I'm going to actually ask you to kind of move past a lot of what we talked about last time. So I think living a life of dharma and like building Everland and stuff like that is actually really important. I think it's good that you're doing it. And I want you to just notice that I think to a certain degree, like that's your medicine. And the problem here is that like, as long as your life is the way it is, you're always going to need medicine to make it feel better.
見に行くそし
The goal is
Yeah, okay, but the goal is I feel good without medicine.
exactly, right? So like it,
I really don't see that ever happening. And I know that's part of the problem.
no, it's not. It's not part of the
Okay.
problem. No. So don't do that to yourself. Don't judge yourself. No, I think it's a completely reasonable, logical, and intelligent conclusion. Because you have 30 years that have told you it's not going to happen, so why the fuck would you
Yeah,
believe that it's going to
exactly.
happen? It's like, what the fuck? Like, so this is where, like, I don't like this power of positive thinking and, like, you know, hope. And I mean, like, hope is good, but like, let's understand where hope comes from. So I think this is, yeah, no, I don't think that's part of the problem. That's fantastic. That's where we start. So what I'm getting from you, Rekful, is that there is just a seed of like discontent that is actually like pretty deep.
Yeah.
That no matter like what you do, you can start to feel better, but there's just this one thing that you can't shake.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Accurate.
and you know, there's a,
How do you know it's one thing? Why is it one thing? It just seems like you're making it into one thing because then that leads to the next step of your self-help guide. It's clearly not one thing.
there's someone else who kind of, and you're pretty successful. Like, would you describe yourself that way?
I go in and out of thinking I'm successful in that.
Let me put it this way. Do you think that other people would be happy to be in your shoes?
Without my mental state, yes.
Okay, the circumstances
They
of
had
your life.
their mental state. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do have some questions for you about like your relationships and things like that, but I'm just gonna save those for a little bit later. So, like, you know who else kind of felt like you did? Really famous person. There's a religion that's sort of based off of his teachings.
There's a religion based on someone's teachings. Like
Yeah.
Confucius?
No, Buddha.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about Buddha for a second. So what do you know about Buddha?
Okay. Very little. Although, wait. Okay. Wait. I read the book Siddhartha or something
Okay.
when I was.
Do you know what was Buddha's job? Do you remember?
I feel like he was like a prince or something, and then he left
Absolutely.
that nobility. Yeah, he was a nobility, and then he left and because he wasn't happy there, and then
Great.
he just wandered around.
So
for a
let's stop
while.
right there. That's fantastic, Rekful. So why was he unhappy? Do you remember? What do you think?
Felt unfulfilled, I'd imagine. He
Yeah.
was just sitting there. He was born into wealth. He didn't have to do anything. He wants to somehow feel like he's helping the world in some way, maybe,
Yeah.
but he wasn't.
Something like that. Yeah. So I think so you're in a very, I think, you know, you kind of say you're in a hopeless position, but I think that you're in a difficult but wonderful position, which is that you're in the position that Gautam Buddha started off with, which is he woke up one day and we all have this idea that a certain thing is going to give us happiness. Like, and this is easy if you're one of the have-nots, right? Like, if I wake up and I'm poor and I'm broke and I have, like, credit card debt and I'm going to get evicted at the end of the month and no one loves me, then, like, it's easy to think if someone loves me or I deal, like, if the credit card debt goes away or if I have stable housing or things like that, then I'll be happy. You with me?
Then you always have you always have a progression path when you wake
You
up.
have a
know what
progression
you want.
path.
Yeah.
What was Buddha's progression path?
When he was a nobility, he doesn't know what it is.
So, like, Buddha's, like, he's nobility, he's a prince. He's respected, he's loved, he has power, he has wealth. He's married to a beautiful woman. With others down the line, should he want them.
Yeah.
And so one day he wakes up and he's unhappy. And he is way more fucked than the broke person. Why?
Well, this is really funny you ask me, because I had one time I got clipped saying, being poor seems fun, and it was really bad. People like it that were really mad at me.
Yep.
But there just wasn't context there,
Sure.
because I was saying there's a progression path for you.
Yep.
You have something to do.
Which is exactly
then
what we're talking about. So
Yeah. So wait.
why
the
is
question-
Buddha more screwed than the person who's broke?
Because he doesn't know what to do to seek fulfillment.
Exactly. In fact, he has done everything to seek, like, all of the goals that people strive for that give them meaning and progression in life.
水泳以下に
Buddha is just fucked because he's gotten all of those things, and it's like, well, now what? It's like, imagine playing a game that you beat and the game doesn't end.
Jesus Christ, you spent half the... You know that Byron understood this, like, 2 minutes ago. You're spending half the time, at least, just talking to your chat.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most fucking boring game in the world.
Depends on the game, but yeah, sometimes.
Right? Well, no, I mean, like, imagine there's, like, nothing... Like, you're post the last boss, and you're, like, in the chamber where you've, like, slain the last boss. And you're just hanging out in
Oh,
that
it's empty.
chamber.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing to do in the game.
Yeah, you'd have to be able to go back to previous levels.
Yeah, but, like, that's not... That's not, like... I mean, so Buddha could... In theory, I guess he could go and well, that's what he did, right? is He gave up his wealth and he gave up...
He went back to previous levels.
Yeah. He did New Game Plus, right?
Yeah.
気をて
And so I think this is a subtle but important point, because I think that...
エオル向き
And so there's a great text called Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And so sutras are translated as like threads or lines. So like the old like Hindu and Buddhist texts are sutras. So they're not like texts, they're like poems. Or they're like hundreds of lines long. So they're each like kind of like an equation. So there's not like any filler, there's no explanation. There's no, it's like all like E equals mc squared, y equals mx plus b, like it's just a bunch of equations. And the idea, and the reason is because they were passed down through oral tradition, they had to be memorized. So like if you can memorize 50 equations, like you can understand algebra and you can teach algebra and things like that. Does that make sense?
I was trying to follow. While I was trying to follow, I realized that why am I getting distracted by this? And then also your mic cut out one time, and I got distracted by
Okay,
that.
so go pee.
Okay, alright.
Go pee. But just kind of going back to sutras, so like sutras are they're like lines, so they're very short. And there's a weird thing in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is that the first word of his sutras is now. And it's kind of a weird thing. Like if you have just like a list of like math equations, like the word now doesn't belong there. Does that make sense? Like have you ever read a book that starts with the word now?
I don't remember what word most books start with, but I guess.
But I mean, like, like, there's no textbook that's like, now we're going to talk about algebra. Like, that's something that you say if you're making a transition, but like, no written thing starts with the word
エ
now.
オルムーズシ
Okay, this reminds me of the power of now.
Yeah, well, that's Eckhart Tolle, right? Yeah. But so the interesting thing about, and so a lot of times people were wondering, like, for Patanjali, whose his sutras are like really, really dense. So, for example, one of his sutras, or one of the lines of his sutras is great. It says that yoga is something that's yoga chitta vruta nirodha, which means yoga is the practice of cessation of fluctuations of the mind.
Practice of cessation of fluctuations of the mind.
Yes, that's the point of yoga, is to stop the fluctuations of the mind. So it's like really like dense, kind of like meaningful sort of things. And so it's weird that he starts with the word now, because, and people were like, why on earth is he saying now? Like, isn't it obvious when you pick up a book that you're reading the book?
To make it more present. You think about the present moment.
So on the contrary, so like what people sort of hypothesized is that actually he says that yoga starts with desperation. That like now, so his first line is now the science of yoga. And Rekful, I think now you are ready for yoga. Because you have reached a point where like nothing else is giving you happiness.
The last... Okay, session 2, 25 minutes to get him to now you're ready for yoga. And Byron just looks fucking annoyed with you. This is like intimacy-free therapy. Oh my god.
デゲマルーラマグダロスキモエベモ
It's a
ラ
commercial. It's a commercial. It's a commercial. It's a commercial. for your
Kimoe
website.
Mora.
I know you're gonna get more personal with him later, but so far, it's a commercial. It's just a commercial for your program.
And that is when the path of yoga begins. It starts out of desperation. It starts with Buddha. Buddha, like what most of us think of as the end game, is like beating the game, is where Buddha started. And Buddha's journey.
Path of yoga.
I'll explain. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like,
okay.
like Buddha's path for enlightenment began at the end of most people's games. Right? He achieved.
You were brainwashing people. We'll watch a video about brainwashing together. I believe this is a standard brainwashing technique. The way you speak is that you always know the answer. You always know the next thing. Anything the other person says, any resistance, you steamroll over, and you have a preset path that you are leading them down. And whatever, you're like, oh, you had a dream. You're like, it's like your life is like the airport. You don't have your bag. You have no fucking idea what we're talking about, and it doesn't matter because whatever the other person says, you're just gonna say, you're ready for the path of yoga now. What the fuck are you talking about? Does anybody ever just say like, what the fuck are you talking about? I hope somebody. I mean, I guess Byron sort of is, but he's a people pleaser. Until he wasn't.
Achieved everything or was given everything that most people strive for. And so like the search for spirituality starts like actually when your material desires are fulfilled and you wake up one day and you're unhappy, so then you're like, oh fuck, now what? Like I'm just fucked. I don't think that this is ever gonna get better. That's the conclusion you come to, because all of the things that you think are gonna make it better are things that maybe on some level you already have. Right, so I think like the other thing here is like I'm curious about your relationships, because that's not something that I know anything about, but I wonder about your sense of loneliness.
Get better relationships.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I think that this is actually a great place to start, because you're sort of desperate, because nothing is going to fix your problem, and that's when you really go looking. So that was enough.
For a long time.
Yes, and Buddha was too. And then Buddha decided, I don't think you need to do this, but Buddha decided that he was like, I'm gonna give this up and go look for an answer, because I've heard out there that there are ways, people who supposedly claim that they can lead to like peace and contentment.
Going to bed.
それはマグダラを過ぎずに見えずに
Okay, day 2 of Correctable second session.
And I'm gonna go look for that. And all this
Yeah,
stuff is not bringing
For
me
me,
happiness.
I didn't do it to the same extent. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't do it to the same extent, but I just had to stop streaming, go travel, do things that people say makes them happy.
Yeah, and so you've explored just like Buddha did. And now you need to start the path of yoga, which is like sadhana. Sadhana means like dedicated spiritual practice. So this is like learning how to, and we can talk about how you can do that, but like, so the path that I follow is something called Raja Yoga. And Raja Yoga is like, so the path, learning how to, sadhana means like dedicated spiritual practice. So this is like the path of yoga, which is like sadhana. Sadhana means like,
They makes them happy.
yeah, and so you've explored just like Buddha did. And now you need to start the path of yoga, which is like sadhana.
マグダラを捨てダローララーハ
It's so weird to just tell him now you need to start the path of yoga. You've not ascertained at all that he wants to go on this Hindu journey with you. You just present it as though it's like, well, of course, it's the logical next step.
そう
But you're like shunting him along. These aren't even conversations. Like you're saying they're not therapy sessions. You're calling them interviews. They're not interviews either. You just have an agenda. You just have a path that you're forcing him along. And this conversation is you push, and then when he resists, you start asking questions until you find a way through, and then you tie something together or use some weakness you find to drill a hole in whatever resistance you have, and then push through to the next step. But no matter what, you are going to end up at the spot that you want to end up at. That's not an interview. It's unethical to call that an interview. It's really unethical to pretend that that's anything like what a therapy session is or should be.
Sadhana means like dedicated spiritual practice. So this is like learning how to, and you know, we can talk about how you can do that. But like, so the path that I follow is something called Raja Yoga. And Raja Yoga is the king's path or the eightfold path. And it believes that the way to get to enlightenment is like a stepwise sequential thing. You level up, basically. It starts with personal observances and societal observances. Goes to yoga postures, breathing techniques, sensory deprivation or sensory withdrawal techniques, which is techniques that allow you to withdraw the attention from your senses and redirect it inward. So generally speaking, our attention is engaged in the senses all the time. So to redirect that inward, to focus, to meditate, and then to gain a state of temporary enlightenment.
When you said breathing, I realized the way I breathe, anytime I find myself and start manually breathing, I feel instantly happier.
Yes.
I think the way I breathe, my automatic breathing, can I train my automatic breathing to be in a better way? Or is it too late?
Yes.
Because it's always like short breaths, you know?
Yep.
But when I really think about it and breathe deep, I feel calmer.
Yeah. So that's exactly why the fourth step of this process is pranayama. Pranayama is breathing techniques. And the reason is because the way to control the mind is through the breath. So Patanjali figured out that each mood that we have, and I've done this before on stream, but we can do it again. Because, by the way, our stream has blown up gigantically since our time together, so thank you for that. But we can do this again. So, let's just talk about breath for a second. Let's help you understand breathing and what effect it has on your mind and what the relationship between mind and breath is. So, first of all, Rekful, what do you think is the relationship between your mind and your breath?
You constantly ask these fucking retarded questions. What do you think is the relationship between your mind and your breath? Who the fuck knows an answer to that? If you have something you want to say, why don't you just fucking say it?
Well, I guess the breaths are food of the mind, right?
What does that mean?
It needs the oxygen.
Sure.
It needs the air.
So I'm going to offer a couple of very difficult ground rules. No philosophy, no theory, no science. Just experience.
Okay,
so you have to...
Okay, that's better. I like that better. Okay, so let me think.
Great. What is the relationship between your breath and your mind?
Well, like I was saying, if my automatic breathing always feels a little hurried, and if I take a moment and breathe deeper, then I feel calm. So I guess my state of mind depends on how I'm breathing to some extent. I wouldn't say that the outside influences don't matter at all. Some people will go to that extent, but for me, that isn't true.
Sure.
But,
So breath influences mind.
yes, it does influence it for sure.
Does mind influence breath?
Yes.
So, are there certain patterns of... So let me ask you this. I'm just going to breathe, and I want you to tell me what I'm feeling.
Nervous? Or, I guess people call it anxious? Or, you're scared maybe even.
Okay, now this one. What is that?
Do it again. It's just tired, just worked out or something.
Okay.
Isn't that it?
It's not what I was going for, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. That's fine. So, let's do this one.
Good job. That's what you are.
So let's just think about this for a second. Okay, let me try to see if I can do another one. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of different ones.
Worried about that.
Absolutely. Right. A little bit. right? So worry and fear. So let's just think about what you're doing right now. How are you able to determine what is going on in my mind? What are you observing?
The breath.
Well, maybe a little bit of facial expression too, but it's the breath, right?
I can do it with the eyes closed.
Yeah, actually, you were doing it better with eyes closed. Like there was a time, I don't know if you noticed, but where you close your eyes and you listen, and that's when you could tell. Right? So it's kind of weird. And then, so the first thing to understand is that like there are patterns of breath that are associated with certain moods. So now the question is it a two-way street? If I adopt a pattern of breath that is anxious or fearful, will I become anxious or fearful?
I think you will become a little more anxious. Yes.
Absolutely. So now let's think about that. What does that mean for the moods that you experience, Drexel?
Well, it means I can start a pattern of breathing that will make me more calm. Maybe I could achieve the serenity I want.
Absolutely.
Are you fucking stupid? When you found Byron in the first session, he said that he has this deep pain from trauma in his childhood that he is distracting himself from in an attempt to self-medicate
マグダラをすり合わせ
and to control his feelings, to try to control his experience. And he's using those distractions to detach himself from his past and his demons. And you're saying, don't do that. Use breathing techniques to distract yourself. Now, I'm not totally against mindfulness or breathing or getting away from your thoughts, but the man is in pain, and he does not know how to address that. So I can if this is some step on the way where you're like, I'm going to teach you to take a step back from your pain from a second to try to get your head together, but that ultimately this needs to be paired with therapy and an exploration of your past and your feelings to try to find a way to decompartmentalize. He just seems so compartmentalized and repressed and pent up, and you're teaching him tools to just do that more. You cannot control your experience and your feelings to the extent that you are saying you can. Eventually, you will explode.
That your mood is
I
literally...
could try this on it.
Yeah, so this all started because you discovered this on your own.
Yeah.
You said, oh shit, sometimes like when I'm feeling bad, I notice that my breaths are shallow. If I change the way that I breathe, I feel better instantly. And as a whole, humanity understands this. Because what do we tell people who are freaking out?
Take a deep breath.
Absolutely. Right? And like, why the fuck does that, like, why do we say that? Is that just like societal, or is there some physiology or
It's
truth
some
to it?
knowledge we learned over thousands of years. We keep passing it down.
Absolutely. It's not rocket science, right? It's just like, hey man, like slow the fuck down, take a few deep breaths, tell me what's going on, right? That's what we tell people. And the mind-blowing thing is that this shit works. That it actually works. And so if you can control your breath, which is what the practice of pranayama is, then you can control your mind. So there are a couple of things that we're going to tunnel down a little bit further, okay? So what are the different qualities of breath? So like how do I like the different patterns of breathing that I was giving you, what are the different things that, how are those things different? How are those patterns of breath different? Like what are the qualities of them? Like what are the stats or attributes of different breathing patterns?
There's speed. There's
Speed,
depth.
excellent. Perfect, that's it. Got him. Beautiful.
Speed and depth. Okay.
So let's just think about this. If I am breathing rapidly and shallowly, what emotion do you think that is?
Worried.
Absolutely. Right? So if I'm breathing shallowly and slow, what emotion do you think that is?
Shallowly and slow. Shallowly and slow. That's a rare one, isn't it? Wait, shallowly and slow.
Pay attention to yourself, because I think you breathe that way a lot. I think you breathe that way in the morning and then...
Man, really? Okay, wait. Well, I know my feeling, but that's not everyone else's. My feeling is
So
like...
who cares about everyone else's feeling?
Okay, so my feeling that I'm having when I'm breathing this way is I need to be ready at any moment. I need to be ready at any moment to answer someone with something they'd like
あだ
Can we just call it being at the airport without your bag?
Not sure.
Okay.
What's that, anxiety? Maybe it's anxiety, but what I'm feeling, okay, like a lot of times I'm hanging out with people and I put this pressure on myself to be the person who keeps the conversation going. So I'm having these kind of breaths that I'm kind of ready to fill the shallow, empty space.
Okay. So I think there's something, I don't know if you want to turn to chat at some point. We can also recruit chat to help us.
You are shifting your roles rapidly and dangerously. So if you started this out, this whole series, with Byron saying, I'm a yoga teacher. I do breath work, and it can help, you know, soothe your anxiety. It can help with depression, whatever. That wouldn't be too much of an overstep. Because you wouldn't be sending him a message that you can use breath work to treat lifelong trauma. The problem is that in order to brainwash him into agreeing to do this in the first place, you open up his childhood trauma and then you used that to manipulate him into crying, partly for the chat and partly for your own purposes of getting him to sign on to this. That is extremely unethical because you started out with the scope being basically that of a therapist. I'm going to talk to you about your childhood trauma. We're going to talk to you about your narrative of your life and how this is affecting you and your relationships. We're going to talk about your diagnosis that you've received. We're going to talk about your psychological symptoms. We're going to talk about briefly about medication and self-medication. These are all things you would talk about with a psychiatrist. But now you are shunting him into breath work and away from all of that. But the implication is that you can treat trauma with yoga and breath work, and then by extension your Healthy Gamer guide or coaching. So if the Healthy Gamer company, if its services are not designed to treat childhood trauma, then why are you talking about it in your streams? If it's designed to address imposter syndrome or streamer burnout or anxiety, mood, whatever, these superficial symptoms of day-to-day procrastination, whatever, that would be great. Because then you could say, okay, for these superficial problems, you can address them with some superficial solutions, like breath work and yoga, mindfulness, scheduling, these kinds of issues. But when you start bringing childhood trauma into the conversation, you are now making dangerous implications about the efficacy of what you're selling with regard to serious psychological issues.
And I'm simplifying the breath, but there are all kinds of nuances to the breath which we can dig into further and further and further. There's a whole branch of yoga called Svara Yoga, which is all about the different mechanisms of breath. And they even get so, not only like which nostril is more open than the other, because that correlates with mood. Like right now, everyone thinks that both of their nostrils are open all the time, but one of your nostrils is open at a time, usually. And like which one of your nostrils is open? So we'll check. And if you want to switch it, you let me know. I'll show you.
Which nostril is more open correlates with mood?
So they're more. So we're gonna sort of start with.
People want to know right now, how do you switch it?
Okay, so then. I mean, it's gonna interrupt the flow of the stream though, because it takes some time, but we can do it. So this is what Yeah, I mean, we can do it if y'all want to. So this will be our formal meditation technique at the end of our talk today. Okay.
Someone in chat said left game. Later. Okay, they're saying later.
Yeah, later.
Okay, we're doing it.
So then let's go through a couple of other emotions. So what is rapid and deep breaths? What emotion is that?
What do you guys think? They're saying panic.
So I'll show you one more time.
Is this the one that I said you just worked out and I messed up, or no?
Just, what do you think it is? Forget about what you said.
got past some part. I mean, that's what I would do. But that's just me specifically.
Yeah. So I think this is important. So I'm talking like I have answers, but it's important to remember.
Yes. Talking like you have answers. Clearly, that is the structure of the conversation. You're talking like you have answers. What do you? Okay, yeah, and
Remember that everyone's perspective is going to be different, and so you guys should explore this for yourself. So in my mind, that's anger. So what I do when I create that
Rekful does not know how to experience or express, recognize, or see anger. So that's why he did not answer that question correctly. You should be picking up on this.
pattern of breathing is I think about something that makes
Oh,
me
I don't
angry.
hang out with a lot of angry people, I don't think.
That's okay. Yeah, so the other thing is some people in my chat said sex, and I think sex is a spectrum. So if you breathe deeply and a little bit more slowly than anger, then I think it's arousal.
Right? That's how you get the sex. It's just a little. All I have to do is breathe a little deeper than angry.
So,
You guys don't breathe?
lust,
Yeah.
lust. So this is lust, right? So
Okay. Oh, I see.
well, the eyebrow is involuntary
Yeah.
because it's like yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's arousal. So arousal is also kind of an emotional state. So we can look at other things, right? And then there's calmness, which is sort of like, then there's chilled out, and then there's like calm, which are two different things. Like there's so many gradations of the state of our mind. So chill is kind of like, you know, we're gonna smoke weed and we're gonna chill out and we're gonna like, you know, like just that's like chilled out. And then there's like true like sort of peaceful kind of like meditative breathing, right? And if you do this, you're gonna have like a respiratory rate of like 4 per minute.
There's one time in my life, I remember I was in Amsterdam, and I had just done a very big mushroom dose, but it was after it ended. And I was sitting in a Chinese restaurant with a cup of tea, and it was the most peaceful I ever felt. I've never experienced this feeling again. I want to be there.
Yes. So that's what needs to change. Right? So I think that like we can talk about dharma all you want to. We can talk about getting we can talk about like treatment of depression and sadness, but I think at the end of the day, Rekful, what needs to change for you to truly be not lonely anymore, it needs to you need to cultivate that part of yourself. You need to give yourself that experience time and time and time again. And just like your breath, through which you can train like voluntarily first, and eventually it becomes involuntary, kind of like driving, right? Like when we learn a skill.
I really want to be
requires-
involuntary. I would love that, but I
Yes.
How much training do you think? I mean, I want to do it no matter what, but how much time will it take for my breath to involuntarily be deeper and slower?
So science says somewhere around 8 weeks. I'd say
That's
somewhere
it?
around a year. Yeah.
A year, okay.
Like, to talk about
I'll
what
do it.
I'm talking about is not even science. That's beyond science. But science, all of the clinical trials that look at meditation for treatment of depression and anxiety and things like that show a clinically significant, not all, but if you look at if you average all of the effect sizes and average all of the duration of trials, there are 12-week trials, there are 4-week trials, there are 6-week trials, there are 8-week trials. Basically, my conclusion is that if you average all that shit together, the average person needs 8 weeks of dedicated meditative practice to create a clinically significant improvement in depression or anxiety. So my answer to you is going
Not very
to
long.
be 8 weeks. But I think that's for depression or anxiety. I think to get to what we're talking about, which is looking at your cup of tea, is going to take way longer. You may have moments, but you want to be able to have that sense of peace within you. And I think that's really what is missing. So I think you don't there's something missing in you, something fundamental. And this I don't think is necessarily go ahead.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
What are you feeling?
You hit me. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so just notice yourself.